everyone, and welcome to another Step for Youth podcast, a City of Houston initiative for youth and by youth. As part of becoming a child-friendly city, Houston Youth, through the Mayor's Office of Education and Youth Engagement, developed this podcast to create a space for youth to share their experiences and thoughts on the state of children's rights in their city. We aim to promote the rights of Houstonians and children everywhere by talking to experts who protect children's rights, highlighting the importance of youth voices, empowering youth to advocate for themselves as well as their community, and inviting youth to join and support organizations that prioritize their rights, such as the Child Friendly Cities Initiative, or short, CFCI.
And when we talk about children's rights, we're talking about the articles listed in the United Nations Convention of the Rights of a Child. For example, the convention states that every child has the right to a standard of living that permits them to develop physically, cognitively, spiritually, morally, and socially. The City of Houston continues to ensure that this responsibility is met and supports youth to be an active, essential part of our society. On November 19, 2019, Houston's Mayor Sylvester Turner became the first U.S. mayor to sign UNICEF's Global Child-Friendly Cities Manifesto. And in August 2020, Houston became the first city in the U.S. to be nominated as a candidate for UNICEF's official recognition as a child-friendly city. Oftentimes, child and youth voices are not heard on some of the most significant issues impacting their communities. Join us today to learn and hear about how Houston and its youth leaders can achieve safe and compassionate communities for all young people.
Hello everyone, we are your hosts. My name is Mai and I am an 11th grader from Aldine ISD.
And I'm Adeline, and I am a junior in high school from Cypress Fairbanks ISD.
We are a part of the City of Houston Child Friendly Cities Initiative, or CFCI for short, Youth Participation Committee, which aims to create awareness and advocate for children's rights.
In today's podcast, we will be focusing on youth's rights to a healthy life and quality education based on the following articles from the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child. Specifically, Article 27 states that every child has the right to a standard of living that is good enough to meet their physical, social, and mental needs. Government should help families and children who cannot afford this. Article 28 also states that every child has the right to an education, and primary education must be free. Secondary education must be available for every child, and discipline in schools must respect children's dignity. Richer countries must help poorer countries achieve this.
To discuss these rights, we will be talking to Dr. Jamie Freeney, Director of the Center of School Behavioral Health and Mental Health America of Greater Houston. And we will also talk to Latricia Milton from the Houston Public Library. They will share more about what Houston is doing to protect and respond to a child's right to a healthy living standard that meets and respects their social, physical, mental, and educational needs. We are fortunate and delighted to further introduce you all to our first guest, Dr. Jamie Freeney. She is a dedicated public health practitioner with a desire to make a difference for the health and well-being of children and adolescents. Dr. Freeney currently serves as the director of the Center for School Behavioral Health at Mental Health America of Greater Houston. She has spent the last 15 years working through multiple avenues, healthcare systems, residential behavioral health centers, and nonprofit organizations to educate and advocate for all adolescent mental health. Thank you, Dr. Freeney, for all that you do and for being here with us today.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
We would also like to give a warm welcome to our second guest speaker, Miss Latricia Milton from the Houston Public Library. Miss Milton is a native of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who has been in the library services field for over 20 years. Currently, she is the Youth and Family Services Manager for the Houston Public Library System. Latricia's goal as a librarian is to bring creative and empowering programming to young people and their families and to make the library field attractive to people of color. So we are so happy you could join us, Miss Milton.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Freeney and Ms. Milton. We are really excited to hear from you. Our first question is for Dr. Freeney. What made you advocate specifically for children and adolescents' mental health?
Thanks again for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I think that's a great question. So, there are so many things in society and in the system school systems and the healthcare systems that really impact the mental health of young people. So, it's really important that there are voices that can advocate on behalf of youth. Also, because you're still malleable, you still have a huge future ahead of you, and you're in a place where your brain is developing and you're able to learn and make different decisions and try different things. And so it's really important for me to be able to support and help guide youth so that they learn that if they make a decision and it's a mistake, it's okay. It's okay to fail. You can pick up, you can move forward, but it's also really important to me to help shape the environment, the school environment, community environment, healthcare, culture, all of those things, so that youth can grow and can be who they want to be without being fearful, without being shamed, so that you can grow up into having this healthy mindset.
What about you, Miss Milton? What sparked your interest in working in the library services industry, and in your role, how do you support children and youth?
Sure. So I did not grow up wanting to be a librarian. I actually started working in the library when I was studying for my undergraduate degree, which is in marketing. I was trying to just make some money as I was almost done with college and just preparing for the future. But what happened was um, I started as a student worker, stayed there after I graduated college, and I realized that I enjoyed the work. I am community oriented, and so it was like right up my alley to do so. I've always worked with young people, even outside of library work, and so it kind of made sense as I matriculated through my career that I started phasing into more youth focused programming. And so it's important to me to support you all as young people because, number one, a lot of people don't give you enough credit for who you are and how you think and how you see the world. And so, being in a library space, I can create opportunities for you all to show, kind of the world who you are and what you're made up of.
It's really comforting to know that there are people who are looking out for us. There are people who are culturally aware of what youths have to go through and what we have to experience on a day-to-day basis. And so now this question is addressed to you, Dr. Shrini. So with mental health being a sensitive subject to some, what different ways can you approach the topic and open the dialogue about mental health where people really feel comfortable?
That's a great question. And I often say, allow it to happen naturally. There are so many things that we say on a regular basis that really are a window into how we're feeling mentally that we don't realize it. And so sometimes, just having a moment to say, you know what, how are you? And stopping and listening, that's a conversation basically around mental health. Also, making sure that when the conversation is being had or when there's a question that's being answered, that the adult listens. That's the most important thing that I can tell any adult that is a parent, a caregiver, or even provides services to youth. Make sure you are listening. And then, as you are listening, validating that experience. So, validating how they feel about whatever experience they just you just talked about switching careers and or switching, having that moment where you're like indecisive and you're like, oh my goodness. But it's using those types of moments to validate how you're feeling, and then talking about, okay, how am I going to either overcome this challenge, or how am I going to work through this so that I can, one, be making decisions that are healthy for me. Another is making sure that I am putting myself first, and that I'm not trying to please someone else, but making sure that I am the one that's making those decisions because I'm thinking about me. And so when we listen to young people and when we talk about mental health, it's really important that we listen, validate, and then reassure them that, your experience is real. But I'm also here there's protections here. There are resources here to help you as far as a diagnosis. It doesn't have to be, well, let's talk about anxiety today, even though we want to make sure young people have the words that they need to use in order to talk about how they are feeling. And anxiety is real. It could be test anxiety, social anxiety. But as we're learning, it's really important too that we are using facts and that we're looking up information and using credible resources. So again, as we're talking about these things, we're reducing stigma because we are actually utilizing the scientific word, or the word that is is not made up or it's not coming from society, but it's the word that's been assigned to it. And it's really helps to reduce some of that fear as well when we're able to disclose how what we think about it and then learn what it actually means. So I think it's really great that you all are having this conversation today, and hopefully there are more young people that will engage in conversations like this with experts or with parents or even with peers, but understanding that I need to do this from using a credible source and not necessarily stereotypes or my thoughts or what I perceive to be mental illness.
Um, Thank you for sharing that. Honestly, I really think that like it is important to know how to properly articulate not only just expressing yourself, but like also just making sure that, or maybe even helping others feel seen too,
Yes.
because hearing maybe you also feel similarly to like your peers, and then it just helps destigmatize it generally, like more.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. So I do encourage conversations between peers, but again, utilizing information, fact based information, credible information, so you're not starting rumors or perpetuating stereotypes or perpetuating myths.
This question is for Ms. Milton. As the Houston Public Library Systems Youth and Family Services Manager, could you explain some of your responsibilities?
So I am responsible for all programming for ages 0 to 18 across the system. This is 30 plus locations in the system, so we have to do a lot of coordinating and making sure that staffing is where it needs to be. We do everything from story times to craft times, all the way to bringing in authors for students to experience, and not just in the library spaces. We do things outside of the library too. Um, so there are a lot of things that I do in the course of the day, in addition to talking to partners out in the community, people who want to partner, and it's a lot. I would say my favorite parts of the job is when we get an opportunity to interact with students and youth in the community who don't necessarily come to our library all the time. It's something about introducing the library to those young people that's pretty special, because a lot of times they're pretty shocked at what is actually happening in library spaces today. Um, as far as challenges or things that are rough, I would say I've been in Houston a year and a half. Before moving to Houston, I was in Baltimore for 5 years, so you can probably see a theme there. I move around. And every city that I've been to has been totally different. So adjusting to the culture of the city, for Houston, the bigness of the city. With the bigness comes understanding what's happening in different parts of the city to make sure that what we're doing as a library is speaking to those communities, those cultures, everything that makes Houston what it is. Sometimes that can be tough when you have limited time. You've only been here a short period of time, so you have to be kind of quick on your feet. Um, but it's not necessarily a negative. It's stretching me in a way I wouldn't have been stretched anywhere else. So I wouldn't look at it as a bad thing. I would just look at it as something that's helping me to grow and become a better leader, for whatever the next thing is.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's a really interesting answer actually, because I live a little farther from Houston, but inside of Houston I've like realized the diversity, culture, and like the overall richness of Houston. So again, thank you for all you've done in the library sector. But this next question is for Dr. Farini. And so we were wondering, with like 15 years of working in healthcare systems, residential behavioral health centers, and nonprofit organizations, how have you seen these systems change, and has it been for like the good or the bad?
So I would say a lot of good. There are some things that still need work, but for the most part, I'd say the big change has been the recognition of youth mental health and the contributing factors that are oftentimes at the hands of adults and policies and practices that have been made that are making it difficult for young people to either access services or just making the environment more stressful because we don't necessarily understand the youth perspective today. And so I think that just the recognition that mental illness is something that is now a crisis among young people is one great thing. and that there are so many contributing factors that we have to pay more attention to some of the policies and practices, both on the federal and state level, but also locally. Also, I think integrating healthcare and behavioral health into the campus is also a good thing. So we're starting to see more behavioral health specialists, more mental health specialists in schools, supporting the counselors and supporting students. And so I really think that's a move in the right direction. As well as I think we could be a little bit more speedy and have more of a rapid response to what's happening. But I also think that we are continuing to see a lack of capacity. So we're continuing to see a shortage of mental health professionals, both in the healthcare system as well as in the school system. And so I really think that that is something that keeps us from reaching some of the goals as far as making sure all young people have access, no matter if they live in a rural area, an area that's considered more urban, or they live in an area where the property taxes, can pay for additional programs in schools, or they cannot. So it really should not matter what the environment or the zip code. All youth should be able to access that care. So we have some work to do, but I also think that we have been making some good strides so far.
That's really good to hear that you've been making progress. And I completely agree with all the statements you just made. But one particular thing that stood out to me was when you put an emphasis on recognizing, like, understanding youth feelings and emotions and
Yes.
behavior. I think having a cohesive and uplifting environment would really help combat that stigma that's being continued throughout the schools, and I've seen it across my whole school district. So thank you so much for that response. That was really comforting.
So, this next question is for you, Ms. Milton. Article 28 from the United Nations Convention of the Rights of a Child states that every child has a right to a quality education. With libraries serving as a place for young people and the community to exercise their intellectual curiosity, could you speak on the overall importance of public libraries in education and beyond?
Sure, yeah. Libraries, I like to say, are like the lighthouses of communities, especially communities where they don't really have the funding or the resources to go out and pay someone or purchase the things that they need. And so we pride ourselves in public library spaces, especially to make sure that all of the information that we have within our buildings are the most current things. Everything that we do, it is with the intent to enforce that education is free and everyone has a right to it. And so it's very, very important. You know, we are community builders as librarians and library staff. I have to make sure that what we're doing speaks to the needs of our community. And so it is imperative that we stay on top of that because there are so many things happening in our cities, in our states, that are trying to keep people from accessing the things that would just broaden them and make them more well rounded as humans.
If I could add, we're Mental Health America of Greater Houston is partnering with the library on our youth art showcase. So we have an annual youth art showcase where youth have submitted some incredible art, and we're partnering with libraries in certain communities to showcase that art. So hoping to increase the foot traffic, and hopefully the young people at the schools around that library can actually go in and see their art matted, and so we'll be having the award winner. So there's great partnerships that can take place with the library and other nonprofits.
Well, that's actually so cool. It's really great to hear that you've been doing that because that's really encouraging to see, like, just walking into a huge public library and coming in and seeing, like, your art on the
Yes.
wall. Like, I would love that. I would love that personally.
So, also with some districts issuing bans on certain books in schools that discuss race, gender identity, or historical events, could you speak on the importance of youth having these resources to be educated and how HPL has responded to these bans?
Absolutely. We have invited several authors who have books that are banned. The library does make sure that we have all literature in our spaces, that we invite all walks of life into our spaces, including those people that we have programs with. So we will continue to be a public space. Keyword public. Um, and so, as a library system, our director is supportive. And she speaks out against banned books. Actually, last night at the Astros game, she made a statement. So we make sure that people understand where we stand, and we invite those people into our spaces, and those who are willing to come in, we allow them to have amazing experiences with these people and authors and speakers whose works are knowingly banned in the state of Texas.
Yeah, I mean, banning books, it really does have an adverse effect on students all around the world. And not just students, just people in general. Everyone in the United States has a right to be able to read what they want without it being censored. And the culture and diversity, everything that's in these books and it being censored off, it is a disservice. Dr. Freeney, speaking about education, you do a lot to educate Houstonians, like young and old, about issues on mental health. So we wanted to express our gratitude about working with the CFCI Mental Health Committee on a training about youth depression. So what has been your favorite part so far about working on this project?
That's easy. It's been the youth. It's just been engaging with them. Literally, that's the part I enjoy most, and learning from them as well. Very brilliant. I think I just have so much energy after I'm finished. you know, Regardless if it's presenting something or teaching something or guiding them through something, that is a highlight of what I get to do. So thank you for the opportunity.
That is great to hear. Working with the youth, yeah, we're pretty fun. But
Yeah.
also for our listeners at home who might know someone who is or could be dealing with depression, how do you think they can best help support their family and friends going through depression as well?
Yes. So, three things: listen, validate, reassure. Listen without judgment, listen without interruption, validate their feelings. You don't know how they feel. You're not in their head. You're not in their body. You don't have their experiences. So validate how they're feeling and how they're perceiving the situation, and then reassure. Reassure them that if you're a parent, you love them, that they're safe. If you're a teacher, reassure them that you're going to get them help. If you're a friend, reassure them that you're going to be there for them. That I'm not going anywhere. That this is not something that you should feel shamed about. This is something that people deal with, and it's okay. So having that reassurance, listening with your full attention, not listening playing on the phone, not listening while you're doing homework or while you're listening, watching TV, actually listening.
Yeah, because I get where a lot of our parents and like peers that are like a little older would see like, oh, we've already heard this story before. Because I know now this generation with like the growing presence of social media, it has like made a huge impact on the way we view things and the way we like choose to have like this certain outlook on life. And it's completely different how parents see, like, compare it to their past life. So thank you for understanding that. That's amazing. And also, like, in our one of the CFCI mental health meetings, you also explained how Mental Health America of Greater Houston provides professional development training.
Our curriculum talks about children's mental health. We help the educator, we help parents, we help any adult understand the brain development process and why there are certain behaviors and responses they will see from children and from teenagers. We also talk about youth suicide prevention and what are some of those comforting statements? What are some of those things that you can say? And how can you be comfortable asking the question? Do you feel like hurting yourself? Do you feel like killing yourself? Do you have a plan? Those questions can be very, very uncomfortable, but they can also be the difference between someone getting help when they need it and them not getting help. Um, and then also, we talk about trauma informed practitioners and environments and classrooms. So, what does it look like when a student is acting out? Do they have a place where they can go take a deep breath, where they can go calm down? And is it something that is embedded within the school system? Is it frowned upon or is it supported? And then, so we talk about how to be an advocate and how to be a champion for children's mental health. We also talk about self care for the educator and helping them understand that you're the one that sets the culture and the presence in that classroom. So your energy and how you are handling your own stress really matters. Also, you recognizing your own biases, your own implicit bias, that also matters because that's going to be, it's going to show when you respond to how children are, when you responded to children in your class. So those are the types of things that we teach and promote at the center.
I think that's really good that you've also like emphasized the importance of how educators or just adults should respond to different types of situations. I feel like knowing how to assess and you take action correctly, properly, is
Hmm.
really important to making sure that everything goes well, and also just gives students better peace of mind that they can trust these adults as well. Miss Milson, talking more about library services, research shows that librarianship can be a very white dominated space. Why is it important to have people from various backgrounds working in the library sectors?
Yeah, sure. So, number one is when you come into any space, it's always encouraging to see someone like that looks like you. Um, so that's the first thing for me. A lot of times people don't come into library spaces because it's not very inviting. They don't ever see anyone who looks like them. And so for libraries especially, because we serve different types of communities, different types of cities, different types of people, I think it's very important that we see people who look like us. That someone should be able to come into a building and feel okay, feel encouraged that there's someone that looks like them. And there's always this, it's almost like an understanding thing too. You know, we understand each other. You know what I mean? We just need diverse people working in libraries. We're all, there's a library in every city, there's a library in almost every community, and the librarian should reflect those people that live in
I
their
definitely
communities.
agree.
When a lot of people think
Yes.
about libraries, they regard to like safety and comfortable, peaceful, etc. So thank you for
Hmm.
doing that. That is really sweet of you because I know coming from a family of immigrants that didn't speak English at first, I know they struggled over and over to get their message across because they couldn't speak
Hmm.
English. It was tough. So thank you. It's just one small action that can really make a difference in someone's lives. So I really have just a final question for both of you guys, actually. So, what advice or wisdom would you give to a young person who is interested in working in the mental health field or even possibly in the library services?
Reach out to Mental Health America of Greater Houston if you're local. I'd love to hear what you're interested in and help to connect you to any organizations or institutions that may help further advance your interests and further your career. And I think just talking to people. Start with Mental Health America of Greater Houston or with another credible organization that's doing mental health work. Reach out to them. Look for volunteer opportunities, look for student engagement opportunities, look for community events where you can walk up to them and just let them know that you're interested. And if you find someone like me, then you're going to find an advocate. So you're going to be connected with someone that can, if it's not me that is the helpful one, then I can certainly connect you to that person.
I would say if you are a community person, if you want to advocate for free spaces and open spaces for people to get access to things that they need, that the library may be a space for you. Come to the programs, see what we're doing. Go to your local library, see what they're doing. Sometimes they're lacking things because they don't have the people. And so there's always, I feel like in library services, you can create whatever needs to be in that space. I do that all the time with programming. Like based on what's happening in the world, I'll say, "Oh, we haven't done this before. Let's try it." So the library is a space that you can be as creative as you want to be. you can reach out into the community and bring people into your space and shock them with what we're doing in these walls. And, I would just say if that's you, then reach out to your local librarian. You can reach out to me. I'm at the Central Library on McKinney Street. Um, but there's opportunities everywhere if you're interested in
That is
being in
amazing from
libraries.
both of you. Mental Health America and the Houston Public Library got it. So there's so many opportunities that we have received from both of you guys and for anyone listening as well. Opportunities are everywhere, just to keep that in mind.
We have learned so much from Dr. Freeney and Latricia on this episode. I enjoyed learning a lot more about what y'all do and how y'all want to help youth and spreading awareness.
So much again for everything you've done to support youth mental health and youth participation in different areas around Houston. And thank you so much for listening.
Also, special thanks to the City of Houston's Mayor's Office of Education and Youth Engagement and the Houston Community Action Council for their support in the production of the podcast. In our next episode, we will discuss the right for every child to have a safe living environment with our special guests, James Gonzalez, the Community and Equitable Conservation Programs Director at the Nature Conservancy.
So see you next time.